Another one of my really crazy stories, the kind that you say that couldn't happen in real life, which makes me wonder if I've been living a real life or not. My baby sister, Donna, who passed away 10 or 11 years ago, um, told my father, who is, you've heard me mention my father, he's a man who was very kind and very generous and very loving, but man, you didn't want to get him mad, okay? And she goes to him and she says, Daddy, I would like to take a course in the University of Maine. They're offering a course at the University of Maine in, and already his face is turning, because my other sisters had to go to Marywood. I had to go to the University of Scranton. We weren't allowed to go to Maine or Massachusetts or Michigan or any of that stuff. That's for other people. That's not for us. What's the course? It's a course in transcendental meditation. You learn how to say and kneel a lot. So he calls me into the office and he says, your sister wants to go to the University of Maine, and I'm very concerned that she'll be up there all by herself and she won't know what to do, and people will take advantage of her and so forth. So do you think that you and Nancy could fly up there with her and get her located into the college and, get her enrolled and so forth and make sure she's got a room to stay in? Do you think you could do that? And I held my, because I knew Nancy would leap at the chance to get out of town when somebody else is paying for it, especially my father. So I said, well, I'll ask Nancy and see what she says. Actually, we went, and within a week or so, me and Nancy and my little baby sister flew up to, I forget the name of the town, maybe Bangor or one of those towns in Maine. I'd never been to Maine before that. And we go to the university, and she has to sign in, and she gets assigned to a room in the dormitory, and we go to the library, and she has to pick up some kind of a reading material that she needs. So now it's about 5:30 in the afternoon, and we've already checked in at the motel because the dorms aren't even open yet. We're going to stay in a motel, and she says she's hungry. I said it's a good idea. Let's go find a restaurant. So we go to this restaurant. Very nice little place, a lot of big crowd. And we have a nice meal, the three of us. And as we're sitting at the table, and I'll finish with the meal, a little band sets up on a little bandstand to start to warm up. And there's a lot of young people there. It's a college student, a lot of young people. Me and Nancy are obviously the oldest people in the place. While we're sitting there, this young man walks over, red hair, tall, not bad looking, although he had a beard, which was against my religion. And although I'm getting there now, I haven't shaved in 3 days. Says, do you mind if I ask your daughter to dance? Which, I just love that when they say that kind of stuff to me. And I said, well, you'll have to ask her. And he says, hi, my name is Steve, and I saw you sitting here with your parents. And she said, oh no, that's my brother and his wife. And he said, well, would you like to dance? They dance. Nancy and I are sitting there, and I'm thinking, my father asked me to come up here to protect my sister. We're only here 3 hours, and she's dancing with a very strange-looking man. And, well, what are you going to do? So we spent the next 4 hours until midnight between them dancing and having drinks at the table and talking. And he seemed like a nice enough fellow. And around midnight, or 10 minutes to midnight, the door opened and a state trooper walked in, folded his arms, and made the announcement that everybody had to get out. And I thought there was a fire or something like that. And the young man said, no. In this town, 12 o'clock, midnight, is the cutoff point. You have to get out of the bar. So we gather our stuff up. We leave the bar. And I said, well, I guess we'll go back to the... No. He said, we can still stay together. He said, I have a car. And there are places in this town where they will not serve you liquor, but you have to bring your own alcoholic beverage, and they will sell you, tonic and ginger ale and whatever you want to mix with, and ice and glasses, all that stuff. and they'll have music too. So we ended up going to another place and staying there until about 2 o'clock in the morning. On the way to, before we went there, we had to go to his apartment to get a couple of bottles of wine that he had. And of course, sitting in his car, knowing that we were going to his place, I knew we were going to get murdered. This is the guy that's going to kill me, Nancy, and Donna. But luckily, he didn't. So we go back to the motel. He gives us a ride back to the motel. And the next day, Nancy and I saw her, went and saw Donna before we left, got her taken care of. We were all set to go. We fly back. 2 months go by. The course is over. Donna flies in. We pick her up. I picked her up at the airport, the Avoca airport, and take her up. She wanted to stay at my house. She didn't have an apartment at that time, and we had the house on Princeton Avenue. So there's plenty of room on the third floor. So she stays on the third floor. 2 days later, she calls to me and says, "Can you give me a ride to the airport?" I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "Well, I'm not going anywhere, but that fellow that you met up there, Steve, he's going to be arriving on the 3 o'clock plane or whatever, you know." And I said, "Why?" And she said, well, I think we're in love." And I, oh my God, you know, what if my father hears this, you know? I have failed him again. So I go to the airport, pick up Steve, drive to the house. They lived on the third floor of my house, Nancy's and my house on Princeton Avenue, for the next 6 months. And they did very little, you know, going out to bars and restaurants where he might be seen by somebody who would know my father and say, "Who's that guy with your daughter?" You know. So they stayed in the house pretty much. They ate their meals. They were our dinner guests every night. And so after 6 months, Donna called my father and said to him, "Dad, when I was up there at Maine, I met this young man, very nice young man, and we sort of were pretty friendly, and he's going to come down and visit us for a while. He'd like to meet you and Mom." And my father was, you know, okay, you know. So that was the day that Steve, this is 6 months after he'd been living in my house. That was the day that he arrived. I actually pretended to pick him up at the airport and take him to my mother and father's house. And my father looked at this guy, he was like 6 foot tall. We're all short people. He had red hair, red beard. He had been a Marine. He was in very good shape. And a nice guy. And they eventually, like within a month after he arrived down there, they got married, and you know, it was great. They still lived in my house. Steve, we saw that he liked to drink up there in Michigan. Well, that was nothing. Steve was the kind of guy that when he was drinking, which was often, you know, we had parties at the house all the time. Our company, they would come to the party. We never said you can't come downstairs and come to the party. So they, you know, and he would often find a guy and get into an argument with him because he was half pasted, or become friendly with the guy, and in a friendly way offer to play an old Marine game where you put your arm like this and he puts his arm like this, touching, and you drop a lit cigar in there and see who pulls away first. Now, this is not the kind of event that often happened at my parties, or Nancy's, I should say Nancy's parties. I only attended them. Nancy decided to invited the guests, made the food, decided the theme of the party. This was something strange, but I got used to it. Other than that, he was a hell of a nice guy. And they stayed married for quite a while. Yeah, nice guy. Different kind of a guy. The one thing he did, though, that surprised me, during their stay there, and this will be the last part of the story, I had went to a high school, what do you call it when you're out of school, 20 years or 25 years, you go to a reunion. And after the reunion, a number of my closest friends from high school came over to the house because it was late. We never went to bed at 11 o'clock. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting in our parlor with about 15 of our old friends and their now wives or their girlfriends or husbands or whatever, you know. And Stephen, my sister, are there at the party too. And one of the guys at the party was not a classmate of mine. He was a little bit older than me. I mean, he was a big, tough, strong guy. And he and Steve got into it verbally, like, because they were both had too much to drink. And they're arguing over something. I can't remember what now. And they said, let's take this outside. And I didn't even go outside. I didn't want to see what was going to happen. This is, not my bailiwick, not my problem. Then go outside, and 2 minutes later, Steve, the Marine, this burning cigar on your arm guy, was back in the house holding his side. And he says, "Geez, that guy's pretty tough." He gave me a good one right to the side. He said, "That's enough. That's enough." And so I had a lot more admiration for the fellow who hit Steve than I had before that. But anyway, that's one of the little side effects of my life. Okay.